Hi, everybody. I'm back, and we're here today to talk about blockchain and crypto. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Adina Madore. She is a principal at the Adav consulting organization. She's also a coach and an educator. And among other subjects, she has a ton of expertise in blockchain and cryptocurrencies. I'm very happy to hear her today. I have a lot of questions about blockchain and crypto. I asked Adina to come on so she can help me figure this out. Hopefully, we can all figure this out together. Adina, thanks for being here today.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. So let's dive right into this. So for starters, let's get some basics out of the way, because I know there's some confusion out there about terminology and concepts. So for starters, how would you differentiate between the blockchain itself and cryptocurrencies? So what would be the relationship between the two?
So blockchain technology is agnostic technology based on cryptography, and you could have blockchain without having cryptocurrencies, but you cannot have cryptocurrencies without blockchain. So it's important to understand the blockchain technology. It's also called distributed ledger technology. And imagine a truth machine where any information that is recorded on a ledger is immutable and could be retrieved for the rest of times. So I would leave it there in terms of the differentiation. Is that clear? My answer? Did I answer your question?
So blockchain is the underlying platform that, but what exactly are, how would you describe cryptocurrencies? What would be your way of defining that?
So cryptocurrencies are implementations on blockchain, and we need to understand that there are many implementations of blockchain, and cryptocurrencies are the important ingredient that make blockchains work for some of the blockchains, which means that we need to understand that there are many blockchains with many cryptocurrencies. Now, depending on the implementation, you could have multiple cryptocurrencies on one blockchain.
Okay, I didn't understand that, but which is that the way you put that, the way you phrased that is
okay.
No, I didn't understand that before the interview, which is that, but what you're saying is that the cryptocurrencies themselves are critical components inside the blockchains that keep them working, that keep them running, and they are unique to the blockchain, which is one of the reasons why we have so many different cryptocurrencies.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that, actually. That's an interesting insight.
Yeah, and the idea is that each type of blockchain, each type of cryptocurrencies, ideally is resolving a use case, is targeting a need for a business, for people, for doing something. It's like a business. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. We exist because we provide these services to our customers, or these products to our customers. The same idea.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think one of the problems that people have conceptualizing of this technology is that they're so blinded by by all the news about Bitcoin as a speculative investment vehicle that they lose sight of the fact that there are actual business use cases for the blockchain, and that the fact that it is a speculative investment vehicle is almost an afterthought. And so let's leave that aside for the moment, and let's talk about, when you talked about the fact that these blockchains are basically platforms that are used to solve use cases and to provide business value. What are some examples of use cases that these blockchains are currently solving?
Yes. So in answering this, I want to go back to clarify when I said that you could have in general, you have one cryptocurrency associated with one blockchain, but there are situations where you could have multiple cryptocurrencies on one blockchain. And the classic example is Ethereum blockchain. And aside from ETH, which is the native cryptocurrency associated with Ethereum blockchain, on Ethereum blockchain, you could have ERC20 tokens. So you could have many other cryptocurrencies like USDC coin. It's an ERC20 token, which is running on Ethereum blockchain. Okay. And now continuing with use case, again, Ethereum blockchain, it's a perfect example to start with, because all these ERC20 tokens were developed in answering specific use cases, intention to solve problems. And that was possible because on Ethereum blockchain, you can develop smart contracts. Smart contracts, it's a piece of software that it's able to implement some business logic, right? Contract, if we say the word contract, the contract has some rules. If this, then that. Else we do something else, and that is, build up. It's becoming very complex and complicated, but bottom line is a set of rules, right? It's business logic. In smart contracts, you can do this. The fact that you can now create software for a business, that's the power of smart contracts. And now expanding on
software though for business that runs on the distributed ledger system known as the blockchain.
Correct. And imagine a business that is just the software. And in this context, you hear DAO, decentralized autonomous organizations, which have no people. It's just software. There are some people behind the scenes, the developers, the people that are maintaining, but imagine a world where you don't have an entity as a business with people, papers, offices, being them even remotely, and everything that the business is doing is actually software. And being on blockchain is replicated on nodes on a network that is across the world. All right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wanted to continue with use cases.
Okay.
The many use cases that are very visible these days are around financial products. And we see many payment systems. We see lending platforms where you can put your cryptocurrency as a collateral, and immediately, instantly, you can get a credit line or a loan in fiat. And these are decentralized. People are now able to make loans without doing the paperwork and waiting, I don't know how long, with the normal banking system, by using this decentralized exchanges and platforms. So everything we know, and even more, in terms of products and services in financial systems, are now moving on blockchain at an accelerated rate.
I want to take a step. I want to take a step back because there was something there was something I didn't quite understand when we were saying that the cryptocurrencies and the tokens, I believe both of them, that they are part of they're sort of an output of the work that is being done inside the actual platform. So would you say that they're kind of a proof of work, that's their origin, and then they become monetizable because they're rare and they're hard to produce? Would that be a fair description? And why would we use these terms tokens and currencies? Are they different in some way?
So let's unpack this. One challenge for everybody stepping into this new world is language. We need to understand, what do we mean by? These days, you have the word token and cryptocurrencies being used many times like interchangeable. Okay. Now, a cryptocurrency or a token is appreciating in its value as the adoption in terms of use case, in terms of what problem that blockchain is resolving, and in terms of network effect. As more and more people are interested in that particular blockchain because it's doing that, and the representation is that token or cryptocurrency, the network effect, when more and more nodes are created across the world and more people are interested in that particular project, usually the price goes up. So there is kind of normal, interest.
But there's a limited, there's always going to be a scarcity of these tokens and coins because one must produce a certain amount of work or solve a problem in order for the token or the currency to be created. And those are time-consuming, energy-intensive problems.
Yes and no.
Okay.
This depends on the design of that particular token. You have tokens that have, by design, a limited amount, right? Like Bitcoin, 21 million, that's it, right? And although we saw a spectacular price appreciation because of the deflationary nature of the design of Bitcoin, at one point it will be very stable, and this is why it's compared with gold, right? And we don't know the number in terms of fiat, what it will be, 200,000, it doesn't matter, but it will become stable as because it has a limited amount of units that could ever be created. There are coins that by design are like fiat. They could be created, and that's allowable. It depends, again, on the people behind the design. It depends on the intention. And then you mentioned something, proof of work and proof of stake. These are words that we hear these days, and they have to do with the consensus algorithm. And now we go a little bit down into the details. A blockchain is being created and maintained by appending blocks. So let's unpack this. Blockchain, it's a chain of blocks. The blocks contain transactions. The blocks contain data. There are very well-defined protocols of how you append a new block to the existing blockchain. And that's where you get the properties of immutability, and you cannot hack and all that, because it has to do with, again, specific algorithms. You have to have the hash of the block, and you append, always with these rules. So these rules could be implemented as a proof of work type of consensus mechanism. Each block that gets appended needs to be approved, needs to get the consensus from all the possible validators that are working on the blockchain. Okay, so we could have proof of work type of consensus, or proof of stake. And now there are many versions of proof of stake. So, but we need to understand this. When I have to deal with a proof of work type of cryptocurrency, that is indeed more energy intensive than proof of stake. And I'm talking traditional types of energy. We heard over the years a lot of criticism about Bitcoin consuming quite a lot of electricity. And now we also hear the shift towards renewable energy and all that, including comparison with the energy that is being spent by the banking system, for instance. So the conversation keeps going. In proof of stake, the consensus is more participatory, as in, if I have a coin that is proof of stake, and if I want my coin to be used in the consensus algorithm for that particular blockchain, proof of stake is rewarding me by allowing my coin to participate in the managing of the blockchain. And that is very attractive for many people because it's an opportunity for cash flow. We do good by, sharing our coins with the blockchains that are proof of stake, and as a reward, we get the coins back.
So that is very helpful. Let's go back up again. And you really wanted to talk about some of the use cases. So
yes,
are there, for starters, are there every use case doesn't necessarily have to have its own blockchain. You could have a blockchain
correct.
like the Ethereum blockchain, and it could have 1,000 different use cases. You don't necessarily have to have, it's not a one-to-one relationship. So why don't you give us some examples of how people are using these platforms for things other than speculative cryptocurrency
right.
investment?
So because of the data integrity that is achieved by storing data on blockchain, one important use case is everything related to data and data integrity. Think titles for real estate properties. You have countries like Sweden that I'm pretty sure it's already finished with moving all the titles on blockchain. Because again, it's very easy to find, is immutable. You don't need all these offices and all these databases.
I mean, that
right?
that would also mean you don't need title insurance. If it's unhackable,
you probably just need a QR code confirming that yes, this is a title insurance, and then you move it depending on the ownership. Everything, again, continuing with this idea, data, any kind of records, think medical records, right? They are working on medical records for 10, 15 years. And there is always the problem with a few systems in parallel, and the data integration is a nightmare, and the doctors actually don't have what they need. Having kind of, again, a truth machine, a unique source of truth for your data medical records is benefit for everybody, and it's very cost efficient.
Now, can you have these use cases that you're describing? Do they all require fundamentally smart contracts, which is a kind of just a term for software that runs on top of the blockchain technology that has business logic? Do they all require smart contracts in order to function?
The short answer is yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I've read that smart contracts are somehow tied to or unique to the Ethereum blockchain. Is that an accurate statement?
So this is history, right? So the first big blockchain that was implemented was Bitcoin blockchain, right? It started January 3rd, 2009. And that was when the first 50 Bitcoins were mined by Satoshi Nakamoto. And one of the people that paid attention and immediately jumped into studying, understanding Bitcoin and blockchain technology, and was very excited about this new technology was Vitalik Buterin. At that time, he was about 17, 18, but he kept thinking about it. And when he was 19, he realized that on top of Bitcoin blockchain, you can design a blockchain. So starting with that idea, you can design a blockchain like Bitcoin, but on top of it, you add another layer where you can have what in computer science is being called virtual machine, which is like a little computer in itself that is capable of running business logic.
That's the
right?
That's
and that
the smart
was
contract.
exactly
That's
that
what we
was
mean by that.
the implementation of smart contracts. Now, if we go back in the history of computer science, everything was there: the cryptography, the smart contract concepts. All these pieces evolved over many, many years. It happens that, like with any other innovation, at one point, there is enough critical mass, awareness, and you have somebody at the right time, right, doing the right thing. And that's how Ethereum came about. And now, replicating these ideas and evolving these ideas, right, you have many other blockchains that are capable of smart contracts. All right. And
okay,
I want to give you an example that also brings into the picture another use case. So we talked about data, and after we talked about financial services. Another extraordinary use case is video streaming. So all these platforms like YouTube, right, have a big problem because all the streaming has to go through centralized entities. All right. Now you have projects like Theta, who is doing, and they are doing this distributed, which is big time scalability of any visual representation. Okay. So that resolves one of the big problems that we have now with internet. And they do support smart contracts, and they are, continuing developing.
But smart contracts are basically just a generic term at this point. They are not in any way only tied to the Ethereum blockchain.
Correct.
You can have other blockchains that are designed similar to the Ethereum, or that are inspired by the Ethereum blockchain, and they can have their own contracts, their own smart contracts. But at this point, it basically just means software that runs on top of any blockchain. I think that would be a fair way of describing
the appropriate, on top of appropriate blockchain.
Appropriate blockchain.
So let's make a comparison so it's easier for us to wrap around our minds around the concept of smart contract. Think search engines, right? We have search from Google, we have search from DuckDuckGo. So the way the search concept is being implemented, and there are many algorithms of how to do searches, right? You see this being implemented in many platforms and in sometimes different ways, right? It's the same thing. Search is a concept. You could apply many algorithms in resolving, this problem. The same thing with smart contracts. It's a concept. Yes, we have some best practices that were developed initially on top of Ethereum, but the innovation is exploding. So you take
Well, that was my
this.
next question, because it sounds too good to be true, talking to you about this. So I would expect that, why is the world not being transformed by blockchain applications, by smart contracts? What's holding it back? Because I mean, I'm not seeing the world being taken over by these distributed applications that are run by the blockchain. I'm not seeing it. So is it all happening in the background? How would you characterize the rate of innovation and entrepreneurship right now, and also corporate adoption? How would you characterize all of that?
So the explosion is there. It feels like an echo chamber. You step into this world, and you see a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of passion, a lot of innovation. At the same time, for whatever reason, only people aware and stepping into and start informing themselves have visibility into this. I don't see too much like mainstream. Mainstream is talking more about Bitcoin and price speculation, that kind of approach. Very little we hear about artists using blockchain so that all the middlemen that are making a lot of money off their work, off their content, their paintings, visual art, or songs are removed, and a lot of artists are now publicizing their work on blockchain.
Well,
and
I mean,
on and on.
let's pursue that for a second. So let's say I'm a musician and I want to cut the middleman out. Are you basically saying that I have the ability to somehow copyright my music and sell it directly using a smart contract without having an agent and a producer and all these middlemen that are taking a cut? That it's simply, that's all it is. It simply enables me to sell directly to my customers.
Right. There are platforms out there where you can publicize your music, your content, and you have peer-to-peer. And I could go in there and buy one song or one album, all that. Even more, now there is this NFT technology, non-fungible tokens. So I could, as an artist, I could wrap my visual thing or my song as an NFT, and I could add all kinds of rules, the metadata, as in you pay one-time fee. And then if you decide to sell it, a small amount will trickle back to me, a certain percentage. So there are all kinds of rules that
the royalties essentially would is basically embed the
exactly.
royalty formula
I can
the,
set up my logic. NFT. Yeah, I can set up my NFT any way I want. So the artist is really empowered to have control of their art, which is wonderful.
Right. Well, when you first said, peer-to-peer, people buying and selling peer-to-peer, I'm thinking, well, don't we already have that with the internet? I mean, I could create a website and I could make things and I could sell them. I suppose it's a little bit different than
it's very different
than digital art or digital music, which has issues with copyrights and royalties. That's really the difference. And also a lot of stuff gets sold on Amazon and other platforms, and they are definitely taking a cut.
So aside from that, let's talk about peer-to-peer in general, because if I have the website with a payment system and everything is set up in fiat, every time we do fiat, the banking system is taking a cut.
Oh, of course,
because the fiat goes through the banking system. When we do cryptocurrencies, I can send you 0.0003 Bitcoin directly to you. You receive that. Yes, there is a fee on the blockchain. Always there are transaction fees, but it's only between you and me. Nobody else. And that's the power of decentralization.
So that's so that would be the benefit for just general peer-to-peer selling of goods of
and
standard
peer-to-peer interactions.
Of any standard interactions is that there's no fee. But there's another level to this, because with music, for instance, you have this whole issue, which is that it's easily reproducible, and therefore the copyrights can be easily violated. And so that brings in the issue of royalties and copyright protection, and that's a different level of problem that these smart contracts can solve.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And with NFTs, a lot of artists are moving to put their art wrapped in NFTs, non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, that's a whole nother weird thing that I don't entirely understand. I don't know if we want to go down that rabbit hole right now. I'm more interested in these use cases, though. You've got me interested now. So let me just throw some ideas out there, and let's see what you can how you can explain it. So what about voting? I mean, do you think that voting is ripe for disruption via the blockchain? How might the blockchain solve the voting problem?
Blockchain, putting voting on blockchain, it's a no-brainer. It's just a matter of people wanting to do this.
Why is it a no-brainer?
Of course.
Why is it so easy? I don't see the, what's the, I guess, I'm having a hard time seeing how it would manifest. What would be the fundamental problem of voting that is solved by a blockchain for voting?
The integrity, going back to integrity, immutability of data, right? When the transaction happens, when I say that is recorded and stored on blockchain and cannot be changed, right? So putting something like voting on blockchain would just build confidence, going back with blockchain being a truth machine, right? And it's not a big problem to do voting on blockchain. It's just a matter of people willing to do it.
Well, that's encouraging. I think the real problem is that our elected officials don't understand the technology. Otherwise, they might be, well, maybe they won't be, but somebody needs to lobby for this. I think it's a brilliant solution to a complicated problem. What about like logistics and supply chain management? You talk about middlemen being taken out. How might the blockchain be used for use cases within logistics and supply chain?
So definitely supply chain and traceability of anything is a very good use case for blockchain. And the classic example, there is this implementation that happened, I am thinking quite a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, where IBM partnered with Walmart, and they wanted to have a better cycle time at the traceability of food, right? That, they bring in. And IBM used blockchain technology, and the cycle time before this implementation was about 2 weeks. And after they implemented the traceability of the whole supply chain, it was 2 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. And now there are big developments, and the blockchain that is into this space for about 3-4 years, VeChain. If we look at the Belt and Road Initiative in China, and from China across, many parts of the world, they are already in position to follow the supply chain on cargos, all the way.
Wow.
And another, talking about supply chain, about 2 years ago, Xi Jinping met with Macron, president of France, and they agreed of, I don't know what, economic exchange with French wines. And the background was that the traceability and the supply chain was on blockchain.
So how is all of this going to impact people's careers, the nature of work? I mean, we have a lot of people that are in our audience who are kind of, you know, manager level, or they're technology professionals, or they tend to be, you know, on the managerial level, and they come from all different verticals and all different industries. But how, in general, you know, for the general population, how is this going to affect us in 5 to 10 years? What do you think the future is going to look like?
So first we need to understand that blockchain will penetrate all aspects of our lives. Okay. And in terms of career, I see a lot more opportunities on the companies that are developing and expanding their infrastructure or their business using blockchain. And it doesn't matter what type of career you have in this moment. You don't have to jump into learning how to code or software. If you know, you can, if you already do that, you can expand in learning more about blockchain. But there are positions for everybody. I started with artists. Gaming industry and metaverse is exploding. So they need creative people, they need marketing, they need sales, they need managers, right? Project management, program managers, operations, they need everybody. At the same time, it's important to decide at personal level, what do I want? And if this feels like, oh, this is an area that looks like has more opportunities than what I'm seeing around, at personal level, it would be good if people make the commitment to educate themselves. That's bottom line. And it could be done through, you know, events like this one, or just go on YouTube and start, you know, creating your network of content creators that make sense to you.
I say that all the time. You're stealing my line, Adina. That's my line, which is that we've got to learn about this stuff, because in 3 to 5 years, it's going to be embedded everywhere. And those of you who do have a basic mental model, which you can easily establish simply by watching YouTube videos and putting the pieces together, are going to see opportunities before others do. And you're going to be able to adapt faster than others do. And you're going to be working on these types of projects, whether you're doing technical work, or whether you're at the manager level, or whether you're even a project manager. These are the types of applications of the future that you are going to be working on. And so having a basic, I like to use this term, technological literacy, which basically means it's like Moby Dick. You know, you don't have to have read the book, but you do need to know that it was written by an American in the 19th century, and it has something to do with the ocean. And it's, and you know, there are some basic concepts about the blockchain and about crypto and about these, more importantly, about these use cases, because that's where our lives are going to be changed. So I'm really glad to hear you say that, Adina. You really are confirming the message that I've been giving for a very long time. Go ahead. What would you say are some of the big obstacles that are facing blockchain adoption from, I mean, say from the government, or maybe is the government only concerned about crypto, or are they also concerned about the blockchain itself? Do you see any obstacles coming from that sphere?
Yes and no. Before I answer this, I want to put out something adding to what we just said as opportunities for careers.
Okay.
I wanna say that the atmosphere and the people in general that are already in blockchain world are very nice, very enthusiastic, and very helpful. It's just a matter of finding the website for that particular project that you're interested, that you feel you have more affinities with. And they have Discord, they have blogs, they are happy to talk and explain, and they are happy to teach people. So at personal level, I think it will be a rewarding experience trying to learn more and start digging a little more into any of the projects that feels good to you or interesting. So going back to your question about adoption, what comes to my mind is, as people, we don't know what we don't know. And the perception and the priorities and the strategic and tactical approaches at higher levels are many times things that we don't have visibility into. What we see small, at a smaller level, but it's becoming increasingly the bigger picture. We see companies that are moving their balance sheet on Bitcoin. And classical example is Michael Saylor for MicroStrategies, right? And he's explaining why he's doing that. So when we talk about money, and when we talk about financial stability of any business, and including at personal level, being aware of what's happening with the fiat financial system and how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are coming into as another position to maintain purchasing power when fiat system has so big challenges, just from that perspective would be a good trigger to educate ourselves, including people at higher levels in companies, to open up and understand why Michael Saylor decided to move his balance sheet on Bitcoin. All right.
When you say he
This
moved
is
his
just
balance sheet, did you mean he moved the company's balance sheet or he moved his own personal balance sheet?
company's balance sheet.
The company's balance. So they have a private blockchain that they created? Or
No. Bitcoin. He's using Bitcoin.
He's just using Bitcoin.
Yeah. So, and it was a difficult decision, and he's explaining this in many interviews and many YouTube presentations, why and how he did it. It was not an easy decision. He involved the board, the accountants, the lawyers, all employees, and he continues buying Bitcoin, and his balance sheet is basically on Bitcoin.
So you're very optimistic about the arc of the blockchain. You see this as being an unstoppable trend that is going to change our lives over the next 5 to 10 years and will be embedded everywhere.
Yes. So imagine, the way I see this, imagine the transition from horses to cars, right? We are still using horses here and there, but everywhere we see cars. Okay. So that's kind of big change that will happen much faster than the cars or internet adoption, right? It will happen much faster.
And are there any major constraints? I'm just fishing around for constraints here in terms of energy, in terms of technology, in terms of government regulation. Do you see any major obstacles on this journey?
It could come from all directions, like with the cars, right? We'll see how the government will design and will package the regulations around blockchain and cryptocurrencies, because probably they are going to do it. Other countries are much more ahead than what we see here.
Can you give us an example besides Sweden? Can you give us some other examples of countries that are ahead?
So China already has a central bank digital currency, the e-yuan, that was already tested in a few cities. And when I say cities, think 10 million people in one city.
Right.
I know that Russia is also working on a ruble. It looks like both of these central bank digital currencies may be backed by gold. We don't know. We know El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender, and it looks like many other countries are opening to use cryptocurrencies as legal tenders.
My understanding is that for Bitcoin as legal tender, that there's a delay in transaction time. There's only a certain number of transactions that can take place. And when you compare that to, say, a credit card, it's an astronomical differential. How is Bitcoin, now we're talking about Bitcoin now, not necessarily the blockchain itself. How would Bitcoin overcome that transaction time gap?
So there is technology that was developed. So on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, there is another layer. One implementation is what is being called Lightning Network, where the transactions are very, very fast. And underneath, they are going to be settled on the Bitcoin blockchain at the speed of Bitcoin blockchain. So this is technology, and this is just the beginning. It will evolve and it will resolve. So right now, it's still initial stages of, this new world. Like in the metaphor with the car. Initially, we were people who bought first cars had to do this to start the engine, right? And take, raise the hood and look into, right? Right now, we don't know anything about what's in that. It's just, we know that it works. Now, when we start interacting with cryptocurrencies and blockchains, we need to do this, and we need to go a little deeper into understanding the technicalities. But as the space evolves, right, it will be as easy as us using email right now.
Another one of the objections that I hear quite often is that it's too volatile to be used as a form of currency, or to as an alternative, not just as an alternative to the dollar, but for all of the ways that money is used for, insurance purposes and lending and hedging, that it's just too volatile and unstable to be of any practical use. What do you think about that argument, and what what will mitigate that risk? I mean, presumably stable coins are designed specifically to mitigate that particular risk. Can you speak to that at all?
Yes, so it is very true. Now it feels, in terms of the price, it feels like Wild West, because these are, in a way, it's normal. This is the stage where we are in terms of development. One food for thought I would put out is volatility related to what, and what's the time frame. Because if we look at the Bitcoin chart or the Ethereum chart, the classical, strong cryptocurrencies, we see that actually they appreciated. So in a long term, right, they preserved purchasing power. And now if we compare with fiat, right, this is obvious. It is very true that for day-to-day transactions, for a small time frame, the need for stable coins was there, and they were implemented. A stable coin, it's a cryptocurrency that is at parity with fiat. So you have stable coins for US dollar, stable coins for Australian dollar, stable coin for British pound, for euro. So that if need be, you have exactly this parity. And because of ease of use, many people started holding their so-called cash reserves in stablecoin as opposed to holding fiat in the bank.
I'm not sure I entirely understand. I understand the use of stablecoins in that it is a type of cryptocurrency that is not volatile, that holds its value, and then can enable certain transactions to take place. But what actually is it when you are using a stablecoin? It's a type of crypto that is basically backed up by fiat, backed up, say, by the US dollar on a one-to-one basis.
So depends on how the cryptocurrency was designed. What you're describing, it's actually, and this is a big discussion these days, a cryptocurrency that is called Tether, USDT. And they said, we are developing this cryptocurrency and we are using it. And by the way, it's backed by US dollar. And now there are many questions because it appears that they don't have all the dollars they need or treasury bonds that they need to back their position. So this is up for, further clarification.
Well, that would be interesting because that definitely would seem like a legitimate area for regulation, which is that if people are, if they're for stablecoin to validate, in fact, that it is backed up by sufficient reserves.
Right. I know about another stablecoin that it's USDC coin that actually at one point was presented as an alternative to current fiat dollar. And that USDC coin, it's an ERC20 token, which means that it's developed on the Ethereum blockchain.
Mm-hmm. And Ethereum blockchain would you say it's got the biggest share of market in terms of people creating applications on top of it?
It looks like, yeah. And there are many investors and many companies involved.
And that's largely why Ether, which is the cryptocurrency that is part of that the Ethereum blockchain, does so well. I believe it's the second most valuable cryptocurrency next to Bitcoin. Adina, I could talk to you about this all day long. It just keeps on going. My curiosity just keeps on going. But we're going to have to sort of just have you come back and do another session. I hope you'll join us again. But at this point, I really would like to thank you for your time today. It's been fascinating. You've answered a lot of questions for me. I'm sure you've answered a lot of questions for our audience. I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to having you come back.
Sure. Pleasure.
Thank you.